Hello, everybody. A special welcome to Borderless Live. Today, we're going to be in conversation with Clark Harrison. Clark is the Chief Operating Officer of Zobele Group. He's a highly regarded global operations leader, and we're going to talk with Clark about how he and his team have responded to COVID-19 crisis and how they've managed to create a more secure environment for both the physical and the emotional well-being of their more than 6,000 employees. So Clark, may I ask you to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Andrew. And good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. As Andrew said, I'm Clark Harrison. I have been with Zobele Group now as the Chief Operating Officer for the last 5 years. By background, I'm an American, but I have typical of Andrew's company name, Borderless. I've worked and lived in 6 different countries around the world through my career, and currently am based in northern Italy, which has been one of the places that's made a lot of news on the COVID crisis. My background is heavily operations, manufacturing, supply chain, anything in that area with a real focus on lean, operational excellence, Toyota production system, whatever you want to call it. I spent about 17 years in automotive component supply, about 10 years in medical device manufacturing, and now the last 5 years in consumer products. So in 3 different industries through my career.
Well, that's a pretty very, as you say, very borderless. Probably many of us on this call who have a global perspective to their work, but Zobele is not a household name, even though many of the things you do are in our households. Can you tell us a bit about what the company is about?
Yeah, so Zobele is what our customers, who for confidentiality reasons we don't name, but what our customers would call a contract manufacturer. I jokingly turn it around and call our customers our contract marketers, because we are a design, development, manufacturing, supply chain company. We don't do any of the sales and marketing. We do everything else so that our customers can really focus on that, which is what they're great at, the relationships with the retailers and the end consumers to drive the demand, and then we take care of the rest. Our areas of expertise are really air care, air fresheners, insecticides, fabric and laundry care, and personal care products.
So we'll find you a little bit about, actually quite close to many of the subjects we're dealing with, all of us at the moment. But where, you run a global business, what do you mean by global? Where are you actually around the world?
Yeah, so I'm responsible for 7 factories around the world. We have 2 in Asia, in China and in India. We have 2 in Europe, in Bulgaria and in Italy. We have 2 in North America, in Mexico and in the US, and 1 in South America and Brazil.
That's quite a global round trip you have there regularly.
It is. One of my plants is running every minute of every week, 24/7. Somewhere somebody's running.
Well, it really is a wonderful global experience. But I was going to ask you, before we get into more about how you fared with what's happened so far, it'd be great just if we could take a short poll of our audience, who I know will be glad to participate. And we want to take a look, short poll, just 2 simple questions. Question number 1, to what extent is your company ready for employees to return safely, in your opinion? 1 to 5. And then the second question, how ready are you personally to return? Thank you very much. Anyway, you can see the results there pretty clearly. Most people feel their company's pretty ready for employees to return safely, and individually, of course, too. I saw this picture building up, and you could see, we're completely ready to get back. Could we please come back? and let's bring the whole group from a company point of view up to number 5. Company's completely ready. I think much of what you're going to have to say, Clark, is going to be very helpful in looking at this. So let me share all those results, and then here we are. This is what it looks like. To what extent is your company ready? Majority, 48% said 4, not quite completely ready, but on the ready side. And to what extent are you personally ready to return? Well, 28% are completely ready, 21% at 4, and a sizable majority, number 3, not yet ready, 28%. In fact, a total of 49, 52%, if my maths is correct, not really ready to return just yet. And we'll address both the business issues, the practical stuff around getting back to work, and also some of the emotional issues that we're all dealing with in getting onto this, back into our workplaces. So with that, let's move on, Clark, a little bit, and let's hear a bit how you've coped so far with the crisis.
Yeah, so for me, with my factories around the world, my normal way of working is I'm either in one of the factories or on an airplane all the time. This is now day 76 that I have not been to an airport or been on an airplane, and I really have not left my house other than grocery trips here in northern Italy.
76, and how many hours is that?
At about 7 o'clock tonight, it'll be exactly 76 days. I got home at 7 o'clock on Friday night quite a while ago, and I have not left since.
That's quite a change to your life.
It is.
How's the business looked so far?
I'm sorry?
So how has the business looked so far in terms of where your products go, and how has that been affected?
So, we're very fortunate that the vast majority of our products are sold through supermarkets. So our retail method to reach the end consumers has been open in every country the whole time. Most of our products are deemed essential in the countries where we are. So we have really been operating continuously, with a couple of exceptions in China and India that we can talk about. But our customers are open, their retail customers are open, and the consumers want our products. So we have had to stay open, and we've had to help keep our suppliers open as well. Mm-hmm. So compared to a lot of companies that have either been shut down, are still shut down, or are trying to restart, we have really been operating through the whole thing.
Well, it's interesting because I think your company's taken a strategic perspective of this and not treating it in isolation. The bigger disaster it is for so many people, of course, but you've taken a particularly strategic perspective on all of this. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Sure. We decided very early on that we were going to treat this very much like the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, which traveled around the world for roughly 2 years in primarily 4 big waves. And that we were not going to treat this as a 1 or 2 week shutdown, few people recover, and then everything's back to normal. We really defined this as a long-term action. And that, we needed to be able to deal with that as a business and for our people. And it really drove us to do different things than a lot of what I'm seeing in the news and what I'm hearing from other people that are just trying to get past the shutdown and go back to normal. That we're not looking at it that way. We've defined this as the new normal that's going to last for at least 2 years.
And some would maybe carry on beyond that period, I guess.
It may very well. That 2 years is not set in stone, but it's, for us with fast-moving consumer goods, 2 years is an eternity. So when we say 2 years to people, we're essentially saying permanent. This is the new normal now.
Right. And so you're not treating it just a short-term incident, if you like, grave as it is. You're really looking at it. This is going to be with us for some time. We better get used to that, right? That's
exactly. And, you know, over the long haul, and you see a lot of things on the news about, are we protecting lives or livelihoods? For us, it's not an or question, it's an and question.
Right.
Because particularly where, you know, most of our factories are located in low wage, developing countries. If our people don't have their livelihood, if they don't have their wages, their lives are at risk.
Right.
So it's not an or question. They need to be able to work, to be able to live and take care of themselves.
We've just lost your voice there, I think, Clark. We'll just let you see what that is for a second, but we just can't quite hear you there. Sounds like a small blip. No, we don't have you now, Clark. No problem. We'll get you back in a moment. I tell you, why don't you just pop out there for a second and come back in, and we'll find a way to handle that. We can see your lamps up there now, and you are upside down, but we won't worry about that for the moment. What I was going to say, though, for our audience here is that this long-term perspective has really been quite critical from our earlier conversations for Zobele. And I really appreciated hearing from Clark the message he was giving. This isn't just about protecting livelihoods and so on. It is making sure that people do have a livelihood, whatever the circumstances. And I'm hoping we're going to get him back in about 30 seconds or so. But this low-wage country issue, you know, it's so critical to Zobele's business where the manufacturing plants are. And of course, even in richer countries, governments just simply can't close their economies and give indefinite financial support for the populations and reduce tax revenues to that extent. So it looks like Zobele have been able to react to this pretty well. And of course, even companies with higher sales and margins than Zobele's, from what I understand from earlier conversations with Clark, they also can't continue to pay salaries indefinitely, which is stating the obvious, of course. But number one, I think, of all of this has been, from Zobele's perspective, protecting the lives of their workers and the families. And for that reason, they took the view that they have to stay open. There's no way they can close at any point in time. It looks like maybe some of the virus has gotten into our video system there with Clark. I'm sure he'll be back to us in just a moment. A couple of other things which in our earlier conversations Clark mentioned, some really critical points I'm sure Clark will want to reiterate, is that they needed to find ways to protect both the lives and livelihoods of the 6,000 people that work for Zobele worldwide, and not just survive this next few weeks. In reality, they've recognized that there have been really quite varied amounts of work that needed to be done. But it looks like we're going to be getting Clark back in just a moment. Hold on one second, bear with me. The internet is not what it is permanently. And I guess there's lots of traffic on there today that's not helping us very much here today. But let's get back to that in a moment. Just bear with me just for 2 seconds, please. Normally I should play some nice soothing music, but I don't think that'll keep any of us really employed. Just hold on 1 second, please bear with me. And we hope not to lose too much of your interest in the meantime. And here's Clark back now. Clark, we can't hear you at all. I wonder what's going on with that. Let me just see, you might be on mute still. We can see you very well, but we don't see any microphone or anything else for you for the moment. No, we don't see it. I tell you what, we'll try and make another arrangement for you to come in by phone, Clark. It is frustrating. I know you put so much preparation into this. There you go. We've got you now.
Okay, how about now?
We have you. And I was just talking a little bit about some of the things that you were doing, some of the things we felt strongly about in keeping everybody engaged and keeping everybody not only well, but also making sure that they were financially well by keeping these plants running. And I was interested, that's a really big commitment you've made.
Yeah, so I apologize for the technical difficulties. The good news is we have more than one laptop in the house, so we're back now. But yeah, it's, we've really, our people take care of our company. And as the executive team led by our CEO, who's just fabulous, we took on the responsibility from the beginning that we need to take care of them too.
Yes.
And in places where we've had a shutdown, or in places where people are deemed high risk and not allowed to work, even if other people are, we've taken on the financial commitment to keep paying those people either in full or in part, whatever we can afford, so that they can take care of their families. And as soon as we can, to get them back to work and get them safe at work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like I say, it's never been an or question for us. Are you working or are you safe? Our motto was safer at work than at home.
Well, that's a very fundamental statement to make. And I wonder, and maybe we'll do a quick survey in the next few days and see how that resonates, because I found that to be a very powerful way of expressing it.
It really has guided everything that we're doing, and the actions that we're taking. And actually, the motto didn't come from us as the executive committee. It was probably midway through the second week in Italy, when things were happening, that one of our hourly operators stopped our head of HR and said, "I feel safer here than I do at home." And he immediately came. We have a daily meeting of our executive committee where we go through what's happening in every plant and around the world on COVID. And he came to that meeting and said, "That's what we need. We need all of our people, all 6,000, to feel safer here than they do at home." And that really became our guiding principle for what we're doing.
That's very, very powerful indeed. And you were saying in an earlier conversation that you were looking at how various people have reacted, use the word panic at varying levels. How do you describe that exactly? What did you do there?
Well, it's interesting because each individual reacts to this on their own, but then culturally in the different countries where we are, people have reacted quite differently, and in many cases in surprising ways. So, at an individual level, somebody maybe, now has their kids at home and they're doing homeschool on top of trying to work, or they've got parents or grandparents that they normally take care of, but now they're afraid to visit because they don't want to take the virus to a high-risk person. So everybody's got their individual side, but on the business side also, and the country culture side, some people were worried about coming into the production environment. Some people were worried about visitors coming in and bringing something to them. And on a country by country basis, we have a factory in Bulgaria. One of my big, strong Bulgarian men came to me and said, "Don't let any visitors come to us from the headquarters anymore." And I thought, wow, reactions from different people that you wouldn't expect. And that's part of what we learned was to listen to the local reactions. Don't assume anything. The word assume is always dangerous, but right now it's really about asking and listening to what the local needs are.
And the local needs, I guess, must have felt different whether you were in Brazil or Bulgaria or where you were. Well, what were the notable differences, would you say?
Well, I'd say in general in Brazil, my workforce there is far more worried about losing their job than they are about the virus. Now, Brazil has been a lot in the news lately. The number of cases there is really exploding. That may change.
Yes.
But at the beginning, the Brazilians were all like, "You're not going to make us go home, are you?" And they really were much more worried about their job. Yeah. The one thing that they really wanted is most of our people and our workers in Brazil took public transportation to get to the plant. they were worried about the buses, so we hired a bus company to go around and pick up our workers, and we will continue that until this crisis is over. In addition to all the internal protections that we do in all of our plants, in Brazil we added busing.
I'm sure. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we're going to get to some of those, I think, in some detail.
Sure.
One thing I just did want to say to the people who are joining us and to our audience in general, you can use that Q&A button, which is the bottom of your screens, if you want to send any particular messages during our discussion to Clark. We'll pick those up as we go, so don't hesitate if you'd like to ask some questions. So just getting back to this, Clark, what have you done to be able to keep operating? So I know you've had some pretty strong inspections as well at different times from the local authorities.
We have, in China, we weren't so much shut down as not allowed to reopen after the Chinese New Year. The crisis started in China during the holiday when everybody was gone anyway. But then to be able to reopen, we were amongst the first, 15 people, I think, or 15 companies able to reopen in our area. We had numerous inspections from the city, the health department, the region, and the larger region. We had multiple people.
That's in Shenzhen, right?
Yeah, we're located in just outside of Shenzhen. So we had lots of people coming to check us. Things were very fluid at that time. So somebody would come in one day and say, you need to do X, and the person would come in the next day and say, you need to do Y, and we had to be ready to react to that.
Yes.
But in Mexico, where we continued operating and were deemed critical, when most of the country shut down, the first inspectors came to us with armed policemen and said, we're here to close you.
Oh, really?
That was not hello, hola, nothing. Is we're here to close you. And we're like, what do you mean? I said, well, we're going to audit you and close you. I said, well, feel free to audit. And we took them on the audit, and the whole demeanor changed. They ended up asking, can we take a picture of this countermeasure that you did? And can we take a picture of that?
I didn't catch it. Where was that specifically, Clark? The example?
We're in Hermosillo, Mexico.
Okay.
So we're about 3 hours south of Tucson, Arizona in Mexico.
Okay.
But by the end of the audit, they were, asking if they could have pictures, and they were going to show us to other businesses as the best practices. So where they came very strong, we're here to close you. In the end, they're like, wow, you guys are doing great things, and we'd like you to share your experience with other people. And that made me feel very good as a leader in this business, that we were doing the right things when that happens. We've had almost that same thing happen in other places. We had the same type of audits in Italy and India and China and in Mexico multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. In China in particular, I know that you've got dormitories and everything else on your facilities. I mean, how did all that get handled in terms of the restarts?
So on the restarts, most of our workers live in other places of China, so they were region by region, city by city allowed to travel again. So they were coming back to us, sometimes 30, 40 people a day out of our 2,000 plus that we normally have there. And when they came back, we put everybody who came back on a certain day together in either one or a group of dorm rooms, and we kept them quarantined for 14 days. We brought them their food. We took care of them during those 14 days, but we kept them quarantined. And then we released an entire room at a time into production after they had met their quarantine. And after probably about 10 days, maybe after the first 2 weeks, they started making testing available in the area. So we gave people the option. Either they could stay in the dorm 14 days for quarantine, or after 7 days, we would have them tested. And if the test was safe, negative test, then we would let them go to work a week earlier. And we ended up testing probably 300 or 400 people in China, and as they returned that way.
It's interesting because one of the questions coming up from our audience right now is how you incorporated testing in your process and how you handled the close contact testing.
Yeah, so I don't think we said it yet, or maybe you said it while I was gone, but out of our 6,000 people around the world, we do not have a single positive case in the company.
Wow.
That may change. I'm sure it will. Some of that is the work that we've been doing. Some of that is luck. But so far, we have not had a single case. We've had a number of suspected cases.
Yes.
And we've had people self-quarantine. If somebody is personally suspected or they've been in contact with somebody who's suspected, we send them home. Mm-hmm. We clean their whole workspace. We check the contact that they've had with their colleagues around them and see if there's anybody else we think needs to go home and be quarantined. Mm-hmm. And we've had a handful of cases like that around the world. I have one in the US in quarantine right now whose sister tested positive. But he hasn't seen her for over 10 days. So the risk is low, but it's not zero. So we ask that person to stay home.
Very appropriate, yeah. And Clark, one of the questions coming back, and I know you wanted to mention that, I mean, you were pretty abruptly shut down in India. There's some interest in how you handled the Indian operations when the government...
Yeah, so the entire country of India was shut down in about 4 hours from when Prime Minister Modi made the announcement to when it came into effect. So there was no soft shutdown, anything else there. It was really very abrupt.
Yes.
Our location in Daman, India, we're kind of right on the border of 3 states. Mm-hmm. And the majority of our workforce comes from the 2 neighboring states. So we're located in Daman, but I don't know the exact number. Let's say 20% of my people actually come from the local state. The other 80 come from the other 2 states. So when we got permission to restart and were declared essential products, finding our workforce, we were in contact with them quite a bit, but getting the permission for people to come across the border still has not happened. Yes. So I've had to replace almost all of my workers temporarily with people from my state when I've got all my trained people 5 kilometers away, but on the other side of a line that they cannot cross right now.
Right. That's a tough way to do your manning, but obviously you've got a bit of ups and downs with your workforce then. And I noticed you made a comment earlier on to me about your sales team and how you had to work with them. Could you maybe talk us through that?
Yeah, so that's been really, really critical. And it started in China when we were shut down those first 2 weeks after Chinese New Year. Every customer wanted to know when we're starting, how much we're making, when they get their products. And we set up a process led by my colleague who leads the sales organization, where every day he had one person from his sales team as the lead, and we had one person from the plant as the lead. And we said, this product needs to be produced. Do you have the people? Do you have the parts? How many can you produce? What can we commit? And there was a really good dialogue between the sales team and the plant. And then they took the lead on communications with the customers, because we could have gotten 1,000 phone calls a day and not gotten any work done had the sales team not taken the lead on setting the priorities for the plant, where we maybe we said we have 100 people. Do you want us to produce X or Y? The sales team really helped us with that, and they were consistent. It wasn't produce that and then an hour later, no, produce that. They were really consistent and allowed our plant to get up and running in the right way. And eventually we took care of all the customers, but it was some priority setting at the beginning.
And consistently, it sounds like, depending on your daily ability to bring in your teams. Yeah.
Sure. And so every day the plant would say, this is how many new people are on the lines. This is which line we have parts for. This is what's coming in tomorrow. And together there was this great dialogue that, you know, is far in excess of anything we've ever had in the past.
You mentioned earlier on when we were talking about Mexico, the people coming into audit
Sure.
and seeing, classifying who was the best in the region. Could you share all of that with us? What were the specifics that they picked up, Clark, when they said this is really different and worth passing on to others?
So we had, right when things really started to pick up in Mexico, we had remade our assembly lines, lengthened conveyors, whatever we had to do to create a 1 meter distance between each person on the lines.
Yes.
Then when Mexico actually issued their decrees, they asked for 1.5 meters. So we had to immediately go right back and do it again. So on some lines, we were able to create the space between people and maintain the speed. Some lines, to create the space, we had to reduce the speed. So in some cases, we had to say to the customer, I know you're used to getting 100. For right now, you're going to get 80. Or we say, we're going to be doing rotating crews through the weekend. You'll get 100 by the end of the week, but not equal amounts every day.
Right.
So, you know, from the production line where the majority of our 6,000 people are, we really did that spacing control. And we had, you know, in some places where we have a chair where the person sits to do their work, we painted a spot around the chair, and then there was a spot for another chair that was 1.5 meters away. It was very obvious if the chairs were too close or if the people were too close.
Yes.
If it was somebody standing, we had a circle where they were supposed to be, or a zone where they're allowed to be, but not cross out of it.
Traffic zones as well,
like,
you mentioned earlier on to me, one-way systems through the plants.
So, you know, prior to COVID, we had one big entrance in the plant that everybody came in and out of during shift change. We now opened up additional doors. So people come in one door, or groups of them, you know, some come in the door A, some in door B. When they go out doors C and D. So we never pass people entering and exiting at the same time.
Yes.
We control the flow by going out multiple doors or in multiple doors rather than just a single big door.
Yeah.
And we've painted lines around those doors so that if there's kind of a traffic jam, you don't get close to each other. You each stop on the lines and maintain the spacing. We've assigned our managers to watch those lines. And you know, in Mexico, we have always provided company busing there. We clean the buses when they arrive. You know, between each use, we do a full clean of the buses. We have the lines painted when you're getting on and off the buses that you're not crowding. And, you know, in the break rooms, like on the cafeteria tables, we put a big X over a space. We took chairs out of the room so that people knew where they could sit, where they couldn't sit. We later even expanded on that and put clear plastic dividers between the seats, because, you know, everybody's wearing masks in our company all the time, but you can't wear a mask and eat. So
Well, it's interesting that you said to me at one point when we were having a discussion earlier, you're saying that you were planning to make some of your own masks, but that was more difficult than you thought.
Yeah, so our mask machine started work this week in China. So we are up and running right now.
Yeah.
And like I said, we plan to be in this condition for at least 2 years.
Yes.
So 6,000 people, I give each one of them 2 masks a day. I need 12,000 masks around the world every day for the next 2 years. So we did the math and realized we could buy the machine and make masks ourselves and never have to worry about limited supply or some government banning exports of masks from here to there or confiscating orders. We had that happen to us as well.
Well, I remember, yes, absolutely. That's confiscating orders because they were really putting a priority on local supply in the country rather than shipping them to you, right?
Sure.
Well, is that the same for thermometers? Because you mentioned you've got a whole range of.
Yeah, we had 3 different orders for our US plant and our Mexican plant for touchless thermometers, where we got a message from the supplier, your order has been confiscated by the US government. And they took it for first responders or whoever they took it for. But 3 different times we had an order confirmed, and then the priority was given somewhere else. So it took us a while to get the equipment we needed, but we now have everything we need.
Well, that's great stuff for procurement. One of the questions coming up, by the way, relates to the US subsidiary. Said, what was different about the steps you had to take in the US, for example, compared to Brazil or China or Mexico?
Yeah, the U.S., I don't want to get into a political discussion at all, but the U.S. has...
need to take you there.
The U.S. has had a different approach to the virus than other countries. And we operate in Texas, where the governor or the lieutenant governor really don't want to shut down in Texas. So our challenge in Texas is enforcing the rules that are our standard in a place where maybe the culture says that's not important. My governor says I don't need to do it. And we have to say, yes, you will. You will wear a mask. You will use hand sanitizer when you walk in and out of our building. Yes. You will have your temperature taken when you walk in. It's not an option. And in a place where maybe the culture is not taking it as seriously, to take it seriously as a company and enforce it has been a different challenge than, say, Bulgaria, where the people are saying, I feel scared, how are you going to take care of me? It's really been the opposite cultural impact in Texas.
Very interesting. And you've taken this, extended from the work floor into shared spaces, break spaces, and so on. Any specifics around that?
Yeah, so, I'm doing home working right now. A lot of us are doing home working, but we also realized very early on that assigning somebody to homework was not a benefit.
Uh-huh.
I'm not allowed to work at home. I'm assigned to work at home.
Right.
And it's a different mentality, because the reason that I'm working at home is because, one, I can still do my job at home. So getting the job done is first and foremost. And two, by me not going into the plant, that's one less person than the workers who have to be there come in contact with every day.
Yeah.
So we really said, everybody on the production line, everybody in material handling, they have to be there. Some of the support staff have to be there, and maybe they can be there every second day. We've got some people on rotation. We've got others like me who are on full-time home working, but it's not a benefit. And those of us who've been doing it now for almost 11 weeks, we realize it's not a benefit, but it's important for all of our people, not just me at home. It's also important for the workers who are not being exposed to me coming and going when I don't need to be.
That's a good point. I think you also made some arrangements, I think, for your workers when they went home, in terms of equipment and other things you supplied them for the home use.
We did, and our IT teams around the world were fantastic, because a significant number of our people had regular desktop computers, not laptops. So for them to go home, they needed to have their computer. We also needed to ensure the security of our IT systems. So, that was the other thing before we assigned somebody to home working, was confirming that they could actually be productive at home. So we had to confirm what type of internet connection they had, what type of speed, those types of things. And in some places that took a week or so to get organized before we could then assign that person to home. But they knew it was in process. They saw what we were doing, and ultimately all worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I just heard also that there's also some health kits you provided for your people working at home, right?
Yeah, so that's, when we had our safer at work than at home, as we started repeating that, we kept saying, well, what about at home? what can we do to help the people at home? So we created for all 6,000 of our people a safe at home kit. So we put some masks, we put a bottle of hand sanitizer, we put instructions on how to wash your hands, using the WHO or CDC or our own guidelines. We put in several different things into these kits that we assembled in each one of our plants and distributed to all 6,000 of our people to take home and help them be safe at home as well as at work. So we started out saying safer at work, but we decided that again, it's not an or, it's an and. We want them to be safe at home and at work.
Yes, that's very, very good. I wonder how many people are doing that today around the world, have emulated that, but I guess we'll see that. Our objective now, Clark, is to take some of the learnings that we've been discussing here and maybe do some surveys around the world and see how other people have dealt with it. And I think, of course, people tell me, oh, that's in the past. But of course, as you say, it's for the next couple of years. And so if we can understand what the people are doing and how perhaps with learnings that came from you, we can extend that, that would be, I think, a useful service to our network of individuals and to the manufacturing industry in particular. What a question came to me, and I know it's coming up a couple of times in the Q&A, Clark. With hindsight, what would you have done differently? Is there anything at all you would do differently? Now, hindsight in this case is a horrible thing, right? But it'd be interesting to hear that from you.
With what we knew at the time, I'm really proud of what we've done. There's very little that I've gone, oh, if we had just done that, or we had just done that. If I had perfect knowledge of what was going to happen, I probably would have placed orders for thermometers much sooner and not tried to go, country by country or plant by plant and assume they would be available.
Yeah.
To get enough masks out to all of our plants, we had to be very creative because we had orders canceled by governments, export blocks, other things that we had to deal with. I probably would have been ordering masks from 4 or 5 different places at the beginning, expecting some to fail rather than expecting all of them to go through. Like I say, we ultimately got what we needed, but some of them maybe not on the day or the week that we really wanted to start with our actions.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's really, it's very difficult to go with hindsight on this, but making changes as you go is obviously the way to do this because you're learning every moment. Somebody described this whole process to me as rather like flying an airplane while you're still building it,
Yes.
It's a tough process to go through.
Yeah, we had the advantage that, things hit in China a few weeks before they started to show up anywhere else.
Yes.
And we, had to deal with it in China, and then we just kept copying that out to the other plants. So we weren't reinventing and we weren't building the plane while we were flying it in the other plants. We were copying, this is what China had, implement this, and then come up with your own continuous improvement, because each plant has come up with new ideas that we've then standardized back around the other plants.
That's one hell of a book to compile once you've got all the learnings from all of that. It's wonderful to hear the story, and obviously, it's not fun.
No.
Evidently brought a lot of good expertise to it, and obviously your workforce must be feeling somewhat proud that they're working for you than perhaps working in a less prepared spot.
I really hope so, and we've gotten that feedback a few times. Yes. But I hope people recognize that we are trying to take care of the long-term health and welfare of the individuals that work for us.
Yes.
And we can't do that if the company's not still here.
Right.
So if we're shut down a long period of time, we can't pay people, or we run out of cash and we go bankrupt.
Indeed.
And the same goes for the economies in all the countries. Countries can't stay shut down forever. So finding a way to operate and be safe where you can. Not every place can do that, but we believe it can be done in more places than some people do, and we've demonstrated it in 7 countries, actually 8 countries. We have an R&D center in Barcelona that, not a factory, but has also gone through their challenges. But in our locations around the world, we've dealt with this in ways that some people thought couldn't be done, and we've demonstrated it.
And how about you? Because, this has had a very direct effect on you, 76 days at home in a few hours. How have you been affected personally through all of this?
Well, personally, my wife works from home normally, so she's had to share her home office. Fortunately, right now, she's also sharing her laptop. But I'm normally traveling 24, 25 days a month, and I'm home about 6 days. Now I'm home every day, which is both wonderful and a challenge, because I'm a plant rat. I like to be in my factories, on the production lines, and it's been a real challenge for me work-wise to figure out how I can be productive, add value to the company when I can't be on the shop floor, which is really where I want to be. So that's been a learning experience and a challenge, and that's kind of what led to this webinar we're doing today. I watched your previous webinars and thought, I've learned some things there, but maybe I've got something to contribute as well.
Well, you clearly have, and you clearly have managed to reinvent the corporate global executive.
I'm not sure of that, but I'm working at it.
But I'm so grateful you've taken the time to talk with us, Clark. I really appreciate all of the very fundamental facts that you've shared with us, with our audience, and also just to let everybody know. And I think we're going to have a slide in a moment to show where everything is. But we're going to take everything that we've done today. We have recorded it, bloops and all in the middle, and we will have that available in the course of the next 48 hours. We're going to have the audio available on Borders Live-Catch Up. You'll get to the borders.net website for that. By all means, pass through whatever comments and feedback you have. Send that to live@borders.net. Any specific questions to Clark, send that through to the same address, and we'll make sure we put the two of you in touch. And of course, a special thank you is what really you deserve right now, Clark. Thank you so much for having joined us. Thank you so much for sharing this, I was going to say wonderful experience. I suppose in a way it is. It's hopefully not compulsory to do this too often, but we're delighted at how you've dealt with this situation for these last weeks. And thank you again for all your involvement, and best wishes to you and your workforce and your company for the future.
Well, Andrew, thank you very much for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed doing this, and it is nice to stop and reflect a little bit about what we've done the last couple of months instead of just being caught up in the next action. So it's been good for me to stop and reflect to get ready for this talk today as well.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the wonderful preparation too, Clark. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring our session to a close. I hope you will join us for the next Borderless Live event, which will be on June the 6th. Find out all about that at borders.net/borders-live. And we look forward to seeing you again. Meanwhile, send your questions through. Delighted to hear from you at all times. Clark, thank you, and thank you everybody for having joined us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.